How you doing today, folks? And welcome to Red Wolf EDC. Now, if you got big hands or you just like bigger knives in general, and you're into an OTF, unfortunately, your choices are kind of limited. Now, you have the Ultratech, the Ultratech fail, the Combat Troodon, either the Gen 3, Gen 2, or Gen 1. The Gen 1s are very hard to find nowadays. You have the Heretic Knives Cleric 2, or the Guardian Tactical 040. Now, you also have things like the Deadlock. Suppose there's going to be a bigger knife coming out from Axial in the near future that I've heard about. But there's not a whole lot as far as in the general production space that really is available for those bigger hands or, bigger philosophies of use. So I'm going to compare the three contenders, my humble opinion. This is an entirely subjective comparison. I could be right and I could be wrong. Some things are kind of debatable. Other things are just outright for personal opinion. So take this with a grain of salt. I would love to hear your comparison in the comment section below. Tell me if I'm right, tell me if I'm wrong, and tell me what you love. And if there's any bigger OTFs that I missed, please, by all means, let me know, because chances are I'm going to go buy them. I love big knives, a big person in general, and a big badass OTF as well. It's a big badass OTF. Now, the categories for this video are going to be aesthetics, which is very much my own personal preferences. Action, which is, arguably not debatable. Action feels good or it doesn't. Ergonomics, which is very, very biased to my size 2XL hands. Materials used. And finally, durability / the badass factor. Because let's be honest here, folks, there's a lot of different knives you can carry, a lot of different knives you can use. If you're choosing an OTF, chances are you at least in some way, shape, or form care about the badassery that is an OTF. It just feels cool. So, first off, talk about aesthetics. Newest addition to the collection, cannot talk, is the Microtech Combat Troodon Gen 3, in particular in the Interceptor Blade variant. Now, I personally like the old school Troodons more. The blade to handle ratio is pretty poor on those, but I love kind of like the almost like ripple pattern to it, like almost like it got partially like crushed. This is all like kind of ripply up here. I think it looks awesome, feels great in hand. But as far as we're talking about what we're talking about right now, this is definitely a good looking knife. I don't think it's as good looking as the other ones, but overall, really cool. I like these kind of like swoopy little patterns here. Makes it feel good in hand. And the blade itself is absolutely gorgeous. Next, we have the big badass beast, the Recon 040. This thing just feels like a tank, looks like a tank. You're either going to love that or you're going to hate it. Personally, I think it looks pretty damn awesome. Finally, we have the Heretic Knives Cleric 2 with a very interesting and unique overall appearance and profile. These inlays, I think, are so damn cool, and I've seen them modified in really crazy, beautiful ways that I keep thinking about maybe getting done myself. This is a completely stock variant. It has a lightly polished inlay, and as well as the stone wash double-edged blade. And as far as the looks go, this just looks so unique, so interesting, so cool, and I love it. Pure aesthetics-wise, this is a very, very biased category. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't. I think the Heretic Knives Cleric 2, takes the cake. Now, second is the action. Now, when I'm talking about action, I mean as far as how the jimping feels on the actual podium jimping all these knives have. How does the opening feel? How does the retractions feel? Is there a whole bunch of play in the butt that makes it feel kind of janky to be able to deploy or take back in? A whole bunch of shake, a whole bunch of like this. Excuse me. Here and that whenever you're trying to deploy the knife. But also just the sound. The Combat Troodon, I definitely think is a badass knife. I definitely do like the action. It is a lot smoother than the Gen 2s and Gen 1s are. And a lot of people had problems opening that knife. Now, to be clear, I was not in that category. At first, I was for sure, but I got used to it, and I just grew up a little more, got a little tougher hands overall. And I love just how you have to really kind of work for it, and then it shoots out like an actual freaking rocket. This does not do that. It's a much softer action overall. It does still deploy very, very firmly. I have never had this knife misfire. Will it eventually? Possibly. Who knows? But it hasn't happened yet. I will say there's a lot of slop in the button, so it feels kind of like janky to deploy sometimes. You'll just feel this kind of button slide around underneath your finger before it actually goes down. The sound, it's good. I do think the old school Troodons just sound better overall. But the action for this overall, for the majority of people, they're probably going to absolutely love. For me, I don't love it, but I do really enjoy it. Now, as far as the Heretic Knives Cleric 2 goes, what you have is a very, very smooth, very precise, very controlled, very machine-feeling opening. Similar sound to the Ultratech, to the Comet Troodon, but just a little, like, kind of more subdued. And the button on this, I gotta be honest, feels absolutely incredible. There is no play, there's no moving around, there's no anything. It's just very, very rock solid. The jimping, I think, on this is literally perfect. It's not gonna tear up your fingers, but it also gives you just enough to be able to reliably open and close every single time without any real issues at all. The action for this, to me, is fantastic. Now, we have the Guardian Tactical Recon 040. This sounds awesome. It's loud. It might be very loud in the microphone, so maybe that was too loud for you guys. I apologize. But sounds awesome, feels awesome. Because it has this kind of structure here, these all have very similar kind of just podium-style jimping to them. But this has a literal kind of like ramp that goes up and then locks your finger in. So if we get a little closer here, it goes up to right here. This is entirely flat. So your finger doesn't go up anymore. It locks in. And then it has just enough jimping on the actual bottom here, or the top piece here, to be able to retract just fine. As far as the play I mentioned before in the Comet Troodon, there's a little bit here, but it's very, very subtle. You can't even hear it, actually. I can feel it kind of. But as far as hearing it, there's nothing there. But it is there a little bit, but it's very, very minor. It feels so badass to open. It's just as smooth as the Ultratech is, or the Ultratech, god damn it, as the Comet Troodon is. Actually, a little bit smoother overall. But this blade rockets out. So immediately, this is between the Cleric 2 and the 040. Man, I gotta give it to the 040. The action for this is just absolutely unreal. Next we have Ergonomics. Now this is again a very biased category. I'm already holding this knife in hand. Ergonomics, my size 2XL hand, are very solid. It's a very, very wide knife, so my size 2XL hands definitely do appreciate that. Little hot spots here and there. A couple different places to hold your actual hand as well. If you want to choke up like this, you got room on the end of it. Very, very nice for that. If you want to kind of be like over here, it's a big enough knife. You can definitely carry it and use it just fine like that. Good, not great. Let's talk about the Heretic. No hot spots at all. But because it is so kind of boxy, I mean, it doesn't feel great in hand. It's not bad. It's not bad at all, to be fair. But nor is it particularly special. The ergonomics on the Combat Troodon. Very, very similar to the 040. They're both very fat, knives. They're both fairly thick knives. They're both fairly boxy knives. Not quite as boxy as this is. This has a little bit of movement to it. So does this. This is just basically a rectangle. But it feels very close to the 40. By the tiniest of margins, I'm going to give this to the Guardian Tactical 040. That feels really good in hand. This feels really good in hand. None of this really feels great. It's definitely varying shades of good. Damn hair. But yeah, this definitely feels better in hand overall. Next, we have materials used. So this is a Microtech's proprietary M390 MK, which from what I've heard, and I've not tested this out, so don't quote me on this at all. I've used this pretty heavily on the Stitch as well as the MSI, and I've not had this problem personally, but supposedly the OTFs are kind of a softer variant, but I guess they run this kind of soft for M390, so I don't know about that one. It's worked out fine for me so far. I like M390. I don't love it, though. I tend to have some problems with that steel. I don't think it's a bad steel at all. Definitely a more premium steel. I personally prefer tool steels. I prefer kind of having that extra little bit of toughness to it and everything else. I also think they just sharpen a little bit easier overall. But M390 is definitely a good steel. In the Cleric 2, we have MagnaCut. MagnaCut right now is the new hot shit as far as steel goes. I like MagnaCut because it doesn't really rust. I'm kind of a sweaty person in general, so the extra corrosion resistance for me is fantastic. But on an OTF, corrosion resistance is not really a thing. I guess you can get sweat down here, but I think that'd be kind of hard because it, hangs like this. So maybe, I don't know. But MagnaCut, I like. There's a lot of different problems with the heat treat that I've heard of, and I've heard pretty similar things with the actual Clerics and the Heretic knives. Normally between 62 and 63, which is not bad, but it's also not great. You can definitely get a lot harder with MagnaCut. And this one uses LMAX. Now, LMAX is a steel that you have to be so careful with because the heat treat on this has to be precise. Most of these you get between like a freaking point, like a 2-point difference or whatever, and you're generally fine. LMAX with a 2-point difference is garbage. 2 points colder, 2 points harder, turns into absolute trash. Now, I'm a little biased. I've had this knife for a long time. I've used it for a long time. I've had it sent in and repolished, reground, and rewashed multiple times. This has been beat to crap multiple times. And then the warranty for Guardian Tactical is freaking amazing. I am biased. This LMAX is heat treated perfectly. Absolute butter. Ease of use to sharpen. Holds an edge for a good long time. Very, very tough. Just overall an amazing steel. And for this, I'm definitely going to give this once again to the Guardian Tactical 040. LMAX is definitely a personal preference of mine, but when LMAX is done properly, LMAX is incredible. Now we have durability / badass factor. As I've said, I have had this knife for quite some time. If you notice right, this coat looks pretty much pristine. Now, I've had the blade touched up several different times. The blade definitely does get scratched up and dinged up and everything else over time. This coat, I have not. I have dropped this many, 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 many times. It does get a little kind of like a shiny spot, but you can literally take some soap and water at that shiny spot and buff it out. Not any problem at all. This thing is durable as all get out. I can throw it around, just sit across my kitchen floor, or kitchen floor on the concrete floor, and no problem at all. Durability of this, I've not super tested, but it does feel pretty solid overall. And the badass factor is also definitely there for sure. This is a big, badass, very cool knife. Now, the Combat Troodon is a knife that has had a durability tested to a pretty ridiculous extent. The Gen 3s are too new, so we just don't know yet. But, honorable mention right to the Gen 2. If the Gen 2 was on this list, the Gen 2 would win out in durability all day long. This, unfortunately, is just kind of unproven. I do feel like it would hold up really, really well, though. But who the hell knows? And as far as badass factor goes, I love the looks of this knife. But man, I just miss that super stiff, hard firing damn rocket of a button. And let me go grab the Guardian Tactical, which is poorly thought through. But I can also show you guys that it will have not a nary scratch, wrinkle, or issue on it at all. Pristine. Whatever the hell coat they use for this is frankly insane. I got a couple different Ultratechs, a couple old school of the Troodons. They all have little nicks in here and there, which is fine. Makes it look more awesome, honestly. But you would think they would use similar coats, similar anodization processes. But whatever whatever Guardian Tactical uses for this actual chassis is absolutely insane. So as far as durability, I love this. The badass factor, I love the way this sounds. This just feels like it is just meant for use. It's built like a literal damn tank. It's big, it's bulky, it's slightly awkward. It sounds like a damn rocket shooting out. It is just an amazing knife that a lot of people have slept on for every freaking reason. Also, this damn button, man, is the best button in the game. I'm sorry. This is brilliant. I don't understand why more companies don't have this kind of like sloping feature. Like the podium jimping is cool. I get it. This definitely looks cooler than this does. But when it's this functional, it's this easy to use, it's easy to deploy, it's easy to retract, this perfect feeling in the hand, I don't give a fuck how it looks. Like, it feels amazing. It feels like it wants to be used, and it does, in fact, feel absolutely badass. So with that, we have the action for the Guardian Tactical, the ergonomics for the Guardian Tactical, the materials used for the Guardian Tactical, and the durability / badass factor for the Guardian Tactical. Combat Troodons fail. Combat Troodons are cool. Nobody's ever going to deny that. Glad the blade was down, by the way. That could have been very, very bad. That smacked me straight in the ankle. They're beautiful. They're cool. They're really interesting knives. I definitely like them. The Heretic Cleric 2 is an amazing, unique feeling, beautiful knife I will probably never sell. I love this thing. But this thing is, it's just a tank. It's just a beast. It's just a monster. I thought this might win, but I really wasn't sure. But I'm going through these little categories, right, and talking about everything. Man, how could it not? If you've never had one of these in hand, and you do have big hands, I cannot stress, like, this is a big knife, folks. Here is a Ultratech. You can see it's not that much longer, but it's wide, it's thick, it's a little bit heavy. It feels like an actual monster in hand. Just a little bit longer than the Troodon, but a very tiny amount, but it's even thicker on both diameters. It's not as big as the Heretic Knives Cleric 2, but it's very, very close. This glass breaker is, kind of a little too long, but, you get the idea. But it's a beast. It's a monster. It's badass. It's beautiful. It's functional. I love the LMAX heat treatment. And once again, I know for a fact it's going to last. It's amazing, and I love it. As always, folks, I love you all. Please let me know what were your favorites in the comment section below. If I missed a big, badass, beautiful OTF, please let me know. I would love to check it out. As always, folks, I love you all. Please take care, and bye-bye. Oh, and the blade opened up when I threw it too. Guarantee you it's still fine. Actually, yep, still good to go. Pull the blade out. So I threw it, blade deployed, came disengaged, pulled it out, good to go. Love this damn knife.